Now, going to my favorite special election so far. This is Assembly District 36 here in New York. Now, this covers Long Island City and Astoria. Now, as a resident of Astoria, I will say that the district line actually goes just a little bit to the west from where I live, so I could not vote in this special election. I'm in AD34. But nonetheless, being a member of this community of Astoria for like over 10 years now, I definitely had my eye on this race. Now, I've talked about this on my podcast previously, but just to catch you up, there were 3 candidates running. But here's the thing. They all had a lot of similarities. We had Mary Jo Bida, Rana Abdelhamid, and Diana Moreno. All 3 of them, mothers, women of color, progressive platforms, and democratic socialists, even members of the Queens chapter of DSA right here in Astoria. So you can imagine that having this race, this was actually a treat, really, for AD36 voters because they had such strong candidates with similar platforms. This was a real test to see what would be the deciding factor and how would the voters make the decision on how to send the best candidate to Albany. And again, this is a special election that was going to succeed Zohran Mamdani. This is his former state assembly seat, and our community loved Zohran Mamdani. Back when I was still in the district, Zohran was my assembly member, and I organized and volunteered for him, and it was so great to see him, obviously become mayor and really change the game locally and on a national scale. But fast forward, right? Who was going to then fill that state assembly seat and fill those big shoes? So with that said, we know that we have 3 candidates running, similar platforms, similar visions, right? All with organizing experience. Really quickly, we had Mary Jo Bida, who has organized within NYCHA, the public housing at Queensbridge, where she resides. More importantly, this is not her first state assembly election, where she ran previously in 2020 in AD37, which covered Long Island City and Sunnyside. She did not win that election. She came in second. But again, she ran on a progressive platform, which allowed her to make a lot of inroads with progressives and the community. Rana Abdelhamid, she also is an Astoria native. She's lived in the district for decades. She also not only has a lot of experience with the community, especially the Muslim community, right, as did Mary Jo Bida, but Rana also founded Malika, which is a center for self-defense, teaching young Muslim women to defend themselves against the Islamophobia and harassment here in the neighborhood and the city. But more importantly, it's also become a place to provide mutual aid, resources to the community, right? And she has a lot of experience, not as an elected official, but in leadership roles where she's worked with, Democratic leaders in government, right? She's worked with the state senator, she's worked with the state assembly member, and the fact that she has that experience allows her to navigate the halls of power a little more keenly than most candidates usually do. More importantly, Rana also has experience running for office. She ran for Congress in 2022, also in New York 12th Congressional District. Now, Eric Botcher thought about running last October, and he eventually bowed out of the race. But back in 2022, when Rana ran, she was running against Carolyn Maloney, who was in Congress for decades. So she is no stranger to challenging establishment Democrats, but also running on a progressive platform. And then lastly, she wound up not being able to compete in that race ultimately because they redistricted her out of New York 12. New York 12 used to include part of Long Island City, but now New York 12 is mostly just Manhattan. So, unfortunately, Rana couldn't run. She raised lots and lots of money, and she bowed out gracefully, so I give her a lot of credit for that. But at the end of the day, Rana is a true leader, and she's definitely done her work and has the experience to become a very strong candidate in her own right. Last but not least, my personal favorite, who I was supporting since day one, Diana Moreno. Diana is an Ecuadorian immigrant, also a mother. She's done great work organizing in the community since she moved to Astoria back in 2019, originally from Florida. And on top of that, she has met the moment in ways that I am just so beyond proud of. The fact that Diana has experience organizing with immigrant communities, she has had leadership roles in the Democratic Socialists of America, even being a co-chair of the chapter. But then, more importantly, she has this way about, really communicating with the way she speaks with her feelings on her sleeve. She's very compassionate, empathetic, and has the activist experience. While Mary and Rana also have activist experience, I believe Diana has taken it a step further and has gotten like arrested, has gone really hard against, pressuring the powers that be to really fight for issues that matter to the communities she supports. So it was so phenomenal to see Diana, go from just grassroots organizer with a heart of gold to now becoming our state assembly member. So in that special election on February 3rd, right, we saw Diana Moreno win that election, having 8,000 voters participate, right, in AD36. We saw Diana win that election with 74% of the vote. Now, no disrespect to the other candidates because they were all great in their own right. Rana came in second with 17%, and then Mary Jobida came in with 642 votes, I believe. So regardless of the vote counts and the totals, it was really great to see 3 people compete and run for a respected seat. Now, how did this play out, right? How did this happen? Now, in this election, Mary Jobida, she jumped into the race early. Back in September, she was posting on social media, give or take, about raising money. And that actually came from her organizing work and volunteering for Zohran Mamdani. If you noticed on her social media, you'll see her in photos and campaign rallies and volunteer events, really putting herself out there to support Zohran, which is great. And of course, he welcomed the support. There's pictures of her and him, and that's really great to see. Now, I also think, as much as Mary has, entered the race early, I believe she may have been really hoping that she would get that support from Zohran early on, right? Now, of course, she didn't get that endorsement from Zohran. It didn't work out the way she had hoped, but she was still a great candidate in her own right. Now, Rana, she had a different approach to politics. Like, Rana actually entered the race after the other two. Rana, I believe, entered the race back in November, like the week of Thanksgiving. Now, at that point in time, right, like Diana and Rana were already, at that point in time, Diana and Mary were already running. They're already making their voices heard and like knocking on doors. And then Rana, like at that point in time, it didn't it would have been a bit of a risk to enter the race that late anyway. But to Rana's credit, she already had great name recognition, right? A lot of people knew her from that 2022 election and from the work she's done in the community. On top of that, right, because she ran for office, she was able to use $140,000 from that previous congressional campaign in her in this election for state assembly. So she already had $140,000 on hand, which is incredible. Now, on top of that, I'll never forget this. Being in Astoria, like I was walking down Steinway the week of Thanksgiving. That's how I remember this because, it was pretty quiet. It was in the morning, right? And I noticed like Rana had just announced, like maybe it was like a Monday or Tuesday that week. And I think it was by like Wednesday, like maybe like the day after or something like that. There were several local businesses that already had Rana's poster up in their windows. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like didn't she just announce? Like how did they take the photo, design the graphic, create a poster, send it to the printer, get them printed, get them in the hands of volunteers, get them to the small businesses to then take them up? Like normally that process takes weeks, if not months, if it's like slow organizing and like few resources. But she, based on when they announced, it seems like she would have had it done in 24 hours. But the reality is she must have been planning this for a while, right? Even like logistically, like it's going to take time to print and get everything done. So like it had to have been way in advance, like she was planning this, which is fine, right? That was her strategy. It's what she chose. But at the end of the day, like it just showed like She was really strong competitor, really looking to like show leadership and like really have a strong showing in the community. She definitely did, right? Again, great name recognition, great progressive platform, getting her name out there, all respectable. But at the end of the day, while she is a democratic socialist, I don't think her messaging was democratic socialist heavy, right? Like I know a lot of her videos also talked about supporting small businesses, which is not to say like you can't be a democratic socialist and support small business, right? It's just how do you go about it? And I think it might have been missing where the socialist language and like kind of the type of policies like she was putting forth, right? I think she made her campaign message a little broader, right? To allow more people to enter and come into the fold, which was a good move. I don't disagree with that. However, it's not exactly what resonated as strongly with the community. That's where Diana Moreno comes in. Diana, she's always focused on the socialist message, right? Abolish ICE. We have to, fight for workers. We have to, really protest and demand more from our democratic leaders. Put our bodies on the line. That's something Diana had done. So the fact that like Diana's record and her message really align closely with like the Democratic Socialist platform made it a lot easier to kind of just, seamlessly rise to the occasion and especially meet the moment. And like Diana's done great work organizing with immigrant communities, where even back when she first came to the neighborhood in 2019, I remember she was truly fighting for immigrant rights and protections, especially for migrant workers, right? They were getting, disenfranchised by some of the companies that would hire them out in Florida. So if there was a way that we could support them here in New York, right? She made that connection, built that bridge, saying like we have, support and power here in New York. Let's extend that to immigrant communities who really need it in other parts of the country. And that type of thinking, right, has really played through in how she connects with people and how she fights for issues, right? And she's just done a phenomenal job organizing, like volunteering for every Democratic Socialist campaign, really leading and putting Queens DSA on the map. But then, last but not least, right, she's done the work in the Democratic Socialist of America organization, Queens chapter, to make a name for herself. People know Diana because she's just so sweet and powerful in her own way. And when you hear her speak in her speeches, it just comes with that je ne sais quoi, that special something that you can't replicate. It's one thing to campaign, but it's another thing to speak from the heart. Diana has that special gift where she can do both. So, long story short, she's a phenomenal, talented organizer and speaker. And what really sold it throughout this campaign, right? While each Mary and Rana and Diana all gained endorsements from people and groups, right? It was Diana Moreno who was fortunately above and beyond, where she got the endorsement for Democratic Socialists of America, the Working Families Party, Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and she got the most coveted endorsement in politics, Zohran Mamdani, the current mayor of New York City. That is like the EGOT of political endorsements. And the fact that Diana got all four, that's how I knew she was going to win in a landslide. That was a no-brainer because that just showed not only was it community focused, right? Queens DSA chapter, Working Families Party of New York, which has a progressive base in Queens, and Rep. AOC, which is New York 14, that's a part of the People's Republic of Astoria, and of course, Zohran Mamdani, the former city assembly member for AD36, and the current mayor. That is phenomenal because that just shows not only that Diana was able to create relationships and build on those relationships to earn those endorsements, but also it proves that progressives have finally created institutional power. And this is a kind of power that progressives have been yearning for out of being shut out and rejected by the Democratic establishment. These four endorsements did not exist to the level that they do now back in 2018 when AOC won. She won the DSA endorsement, but it did not have the same kind of power than it did back then. Working Families Party, they were coming off a tough election with Cynthia Nixon in the primary. She was their candidate, but, only won 30% of the vote against Cuomo, who was working hard to actually prevent the Working Families Party from getting more ballot access, right? And for them having to achieve higher goals to maintain themselves as a party in New York. And then even AOC, she had not built a name for herself yet in 2018. Like, she was still up and coming. And yes, she was a national figure, but she's definitely way more powerful now than she was back then. And Zohran in 2018 wasn't even an assembly member yet. He was organizing on the ground. He was had organized for Bernie Sanders before that. But just the idea that, it took a lot of growing and organizing and building on these relationships for progressives to finally have institutional power, a type of influence that comes with conversations in the community, comes with grassroots organizing, it comes with credibility from the work that they do, and it comes from a values-driven message that motivates and entices voters, especially young voters, millennials and Gen Z, to support the work that they're doing. It's finally culminated in this moment. The fact that Diana Moreno, she achieved the EGOT of political endorsements, okay? So, well-deserved, very much earned. And I have to say, this now sheds new light on how progressives move forward. If progressive Democratic candidates can earn the endorsements of DSA, Working Families Party, AOC, and Zohran Mamdani, that is the quadruple threat that will definitely send any candidate to win their election, because that is the power that progressives have created, that they deserve, and that will transform not only their district and our country. Last note on that, Diana Moreno is now the state assembly member for AD36. And again, she won through amazing organizing. She won through speaking to her community, not running away from issues, right? Being a leader, especially meeting this moment with her great organizing with immigrant communities as we have to fight the Trump administration and Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, to abolish ICE. Diana gained the trust of the voters that she would do the best job to do that. And of course, with Zohran's endorsement, that was probably the most powerful and potent of them all, because it is the former state assembly member, and Zohran was, or is, well-liked in this district, in this community. So it's no surprise there that she won and she earned it. But I will say, too, this now puts Astoria as the only district in the country to have a Democratic Socialist at nearly every level of government representing Astoria. The only place in the entire country. City Council, we have Tiffany Caban. For our state assembly member, Diana Moreno. For State Senate District, Kristen Gonzalez. For New York City, Mayor Mamdani. And for Congress, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So now, in a certain area of Astoria, the People's Republic of Astoria now has a Democratic Socialist representing them at nearly every level of government. That is wild. And the last time this has happened in America, back in the 1910s, out in Milwaukee. So, that says a lot about where we are in our politics today and the fact that it is possible right here in Astoria, New York. Big congratulations to Diana Moreno. She's done phenomenal work, very much earned this position and deserved. The fact that the voters also felt this way. Quick note, not only did Diana win her election on the Democratic Party line because she earned the endorsement of the Democratic Party from the Queens County Democrats, right? But she also won on the Working Families Party ballot line because she earned their endorsement as the nominee. So when you add the ballot line from the Democratic votes and the Working Families Party votes, again, she won with like 6,100 votes, 74% of the total. Again, much congratulations to her. Well-deserved, well-earned. And I cannot wait to see I was going to say I can't wait to see what she does next in State Assembly, but she's already done some work. Get this. The first bill that Diana signed on when she got to the State Assembly in Albany, she signed on to the New York for All Act. This is the bill that at the state level protects New Yorkers from ICE. It doesn't abolish ICE, but it does strengthen protections for immigrant New Yorkers. This is huge. Right now, we have some support in the state assembly and the state senate. We need to be calling our reps in the assembly and the senate to make sure it gets passed with overwhelming support. And we need to pressure our governor to make sure it gets signed. That being said, I cannot wait to see what Diana Moreno does in 2026 and beyond as the new state assembly member in Zohran's former seat, AD36. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you heard and want to learn more, make sure to subscribe to Not Suitable for Democracy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Or you can follow along on Instagram and TikTok. I use the same handle for both, so make sure to follow along at NSFD_pod. Take care, and remember, democracy is not suitable without you.